Namaste, friends. Welcome to WiT-ACE Park, a very interesting conference setting. And I have two wonderful guests with me, and both the ladies and women leaders need no introduction. But before I go and introduce them and ask them some questions, probably which will answer and set the tone for the conference, a quick introduction of myself. I'm Pankaj Bansal. I'm the Group CEO and co-founder of PeopleStrong Technologies, which has PeopleStrong, tagged VBox as its companies. I'm also a founder director for a fund called Work 10M, which is work for 10 million people. So this is my context, friends, and I'm very passionate about the subject of entrepreneurship, women in technology, and few other areas. And probably that's why Women in Tech team and Anu specifically reached out to me. So thank you for giving me opportunity. And this is probably the second time I'm doing this for WiT. And last year, I remember I had the privilege of having a conversation with Neelam. So we can check on the points that Neelam said last year and collaborate them. So wonderful having you all. And thank you once again for joining for this show. This brings me to you, Neelam and Ashu, once again, and a big namaste to you both. To this wonderful evening, afternoon, wherever people are watching this for. And we're going to have Neelam and Ashu conversation for next about 40 minutes odd, where we will discuss various aspects of the conference that is being designed. But before I do that, Ashu, Neelam, I was thinking that this theme that has been given to us, how it is going to converse, how deep, how relevant in the context we are in. And I was very pleasantly surprised to note that the reasons for which the institutions and individuals flourished or thrived, if at all, or struggled in the last 14 months or 15 months are pretty same and common. For instance, when you speak to people, they say, okay, I have changed my career. I've become far more focused. So they've used innovative methods or hacks. Same as the corporation story. They say we've used innovation, we found newer hacks to deliver and reach out to customers. If you look at second thing, everyone said that we've been far more inclusive than ever before. The hierarchies are collapsing. If you ask people, they're saying, okay, my family, my condominiums, my friends, we've just changed the way we used to live. So everywhere inclusion has increased. And third, everyone is looking for impact because in the first wave, it was all about jobs. In this wave, it was all about lives. So I think the three things, the innovation, the inclusiveness, and the impact are common not only for one segment, but for all the segments it appears. Now, if that's the context, I'm going to ask a few questions and would love to hear from you, Ashu and Neelam. And to begin with you, Ashu, I see a lot of contradiction in last 14 months. And I'm going to ask you first your experience of last 14 months. So on one hand, I see that India's GDP ratio has been, in a way, GDP numbers have been reset. And Ashu, your background, you being an MD and CEO for CRISIL, which pretty much defines Indian economy's numbers, right? That's how we've been looked at. We have over 3 decades of experience in IT and financial services. So would love to hear your perspective when you say we have lowered down the number to 9.5%. What does that mean? But more importantly, there are also positive stories we hear. We have a company tagged and it does something called decoding jobs. And Ashu, it says that 33% IT services jobs, IT companies jobs are going to increase. In most sectors, it is saying that. So it is particular kind of jobs, but the net job outlook looks very positive. If you look at the number of people who've joined, the part of the whole formal economy is increasing, especially in March. So there are bad news, there are good news. How do we look at and understand this dichotomy? We would love to hear from you, Ashu, before I go to Neelam.
Thank you very much, Pankaj, and thank you very much, Women in Technology Forum, to having me here. It's always a delight, Neelam, to be co-panelist with you, and Pankaj, fantastic that you're moderating this. And, you know, as you were just giving a prelude and, you know, talking about how it's not any different for individuals or corporations, I think that's the most unique thing about what's shaping the world, has shaped it and will shape it going forward. Now, you know, let me sort of put some context into this. Firstly, you know, when one looks at it from the numbers lens, the story is not great at all, because last year global GDP fell by 3.5%, and India GDP contracted by 8%. And when one peels the onion further, you find that the impact, right, is a lot more in the sort of small and medium enterprises or micro enterprises. And if you just think about it, the fact that global GDP was only minus 3.5, but India was 8, and India and China are known to be the two fastest growing economies for like more than a decade. It tells you something. And then this year, beginning of the year, we said that India would grow at 11%, and therefore will kind of get back to pre-COVID levels, right? Just pure math. And global economy would grow by 5%. And today, as we speak, with the second wave having impacted India so deeply, we've lowered our forecast to 9.5%. And the overall global GDP has gone up to 5.5%. And if you think about the US, that's actually going to grow 6% this year. The size of the GDP of that country, and at 6% is almost like the decadal average for India. So clearly they kind of recover COVID and kind of start tracking true growth. And herein lies the big issue really. In this whole process, the larger economies or the advanced economies have become stronger or richer, as have the large companies, right? So the economic divide or the polarization has gotten worsened. And even at a individual level, those with access to resources at a very personal level have been able to survive the pandemic, not only survive, but thrive. But the others have not. And there's a very telling number. The United Nations released the World Gender Gap Report. And the insight is during the last 12 months, average women in the workforce is about 39%. We kind of say it's not much, but if you include domestic help and everybody's 39%. Loss of jobs for women was the most at 54%. So it's going to take 100 years to get back to equality, which is what, at every forum we all talk about. And there are two things that will make it happen, and linking it back to what you said. It's using innovation in a very different kind of way and getting technology to power that innovation. Now, I don't mean just in terms of, the bandwidth, etc. Because the reality is, even the villages in India, the smallest of places you can think of, if they had access to a mobile phone, they were still able to manage.
Sure.
Right? And that is where I think India's sort of payment setup, and I know, Neelam is far closer to it than I have. And we do a lot of community work in the Northeast. And we feel so great to see weavers coming onto a Zoom call or doing a panel discussion like how we are today to share how they are seeing things and discussing some family issues. So I just thought I would connect the big picture to what had happened on the ground.
Though it's wonderful input, Ashu, but it also scares us when you say it'll take 100 years to become equal, and which is not a great thing. And I'm going to come back and pick this up later in a while. But thank you for that input, Ashu, and being so candid. Neelam, coming on to you. You need no introduction, Neelam, but still you've been a board member at multiple organizations, including large banks like ICICI. You've been a most known face for India in its tech world, right, Neelam? You've spent over 4 decades almost in this field. We would love to hear from you, Neelam. And I remember discussing this with you last year with Debjani of NASSCOM when we met. That Neelam, when you look at last 14 months and you specifically see, has something changed? Has India learned something? Have you seen any specific thing that you want to talk about before I have some follow-up questions? You're on mute, Neelam.
Thank you, Pankaj. Ashu, very good comments to start the discussion. I really appreciate the discussion on all the numbers. When I look at the last 14 months, it's been a big struggle in India, and things have changed dramatically. Technology has become right in the center of everything we do. No matter what you do today, if you are not well versed with technology, you're not going to survive this pandemic as well as go forward, because thinking that things will go back to the previous normal is not going to happen. This has been said in many platforms. I am not going to go and start buying groceries when I'm buying them online. I'm not going to go for every meeting face to face when I know the Zoom calls or the online calls are equally effective. So the way we work, the way we live has changed and has got impacted in the 14 months. I want to pick up on what Ashu said about women losing more jobs than than men in the last 14, 16 months. The truth in India is even more worse than what she said. We believe that in India, nearly 60% of the women who were employed have lost their jobs. Now, either they've been laid off or they voluntarily exited the workforce because the pressure of being the caregiver, the pressure of being the homemaker, as well as doing a job from home is just not working for everyone. And that's been a big issue. The big percentage of women who used to help at home, who were helpers at our place, are not coming in. So the lower level jobs for women have also been impacted. Now add to it a second dimension, which has come into light recently, has been technology awareness for women is much lower than men. If you look at the cell phone data, just look at the mobile phone, because we believe mobile is the first screen anybody uses today across the country. You have data which shows 79% of men have mobile phones, 30 odd percent women have mobile phones. And of that 30, 24% have smartphones. So that means you take 24, it's like 7-8% of the women have smartphones. And how are you expecting this whole community to come up and come into the technology world? So the disparity has increased. The dependence on technology has increased and women have got left behind even more. So last 14 months have really shown to us that if we don't do something different, we have marginalized the women workforce across all layers of the society.
So Neelam, I have a follow-up question, and I want Ashu you also to comment on it. We all know the numbers. We know the TCS story, right? The TCS has a large number of women percentage, which moved from 33 to 36, etc., etc. And the patents that they filed, the participation on women in that. But there are far and few stories. I say we don't need any numbers. Technically, Ashu, Neelam, if we write on one side of the page, I was reading somewhere, the number of women you have in your organizations that you are at board of, or you are CEO or heading, the total number of women, then you write the number of women in managerial layer, and then you write the number of women at the top team, and then in the board. And then just on the other page, write the same ratio for men. We all will get answers. So I think we don't need any report. We don't need any analysis to know that there is a disparity. That's what probably WIT is attempting to do. I see it all the time, even at my own company at PeopleStrong, we have 48% women as overall, but the moment I go to managers, it shifts to 28%. I go up, it goes to about 15%. I look at the board, it's 15-20%. So how do we walk this journey? You've shared the problems, but do we have any case studies? Do we have any questions of some successful large enterprises who probably have resources to invest in? Have they done enough, or the whole responsibility is with small and mid enterprises? Why is it happening? Is it large company problem? Is it small company? Whose problem is it? Neelam?
Okay, so let me address that for you. I was working with IBM till last year, and all their CSR funds is on women in technology and spending time with schools to see can girls come to school and pick up science. And we found that the social fabric in most places don't encourage women to take courses in science. Parents believe it will be tough, they'll need tuitions, we don't want to spend that money. Anyway, if you take science, your studies after school is many more years. When are you going to get married, and so on and so forth. The social fabric doesn't support us in this country to look at women and take them forward. And as a result, now you look at the job market. More and more tech jobs are coming in, and this is not going to change. Whether men or women, the transformation of jobs to using technology for everything we do is happening. And if we don't reskill ourselves, it's not going to happen. And now you look at vocational trainings or technology trainings after education, women percentage is less than 20% over there. So we are not taking responsibility to gear ourselves for the future of the tomorrow. And we need the society to support them and say, no matter what you do, you need to go into school and study what you would like to study and take it forward as a career. The starting point is the schools itself.
Yeah. So Neelam, this social fabric is very hard to change. And I'm going to come back to
impossible.
You. Do you agree with Neelam? Because see, I'll tell you, if I click on the data, you look at data, Ashu, if 40% of male workers lost their jobs, 2/3 of them got back, right? And about 70-75% of women who lost the job, only 1/3 got back, right? So I agree with Neelam, but is this really just a social fabric, or is it COVID, or is it the women themselves taking too much of responsibility of family and compromising career, or is it something else that we don't know? What is your view, Ashu?
So it's all of the above, right? This is not just a case about big companies having the resources and making it happen. It's not about leaving the problem to small entrepreneurs or mid-sized companies. And if I just think about it, right, and we'll talk about India rather than get to the rest of the world. But let me tell you, the story is no different. Whatever we say, it's true even for the advanced economies. First, like Neelam said, there is a huge uptake of job-friendly education itself, right? If you analyze who takes up BA versus BCom, BSc, who goes up to high school. I mean, you start with primary to middle school, you just see that leaky pipeline. So eventually what goes through graduation itself is a very big issue. COVID has worsened the situation, and I will just talk at it quickly at a multi-level simply so that we're able to double down in a way in terms of, can we make an impact or a change, right? Why uptake for women has been even lower? It's linked back to what Neelam said, right? Families have one mobile phone. Between a son and daughter, who does the school on mobile? Because education went online and it's over a year. I mean, I've heard people say, oh, it's naturally my son. And I'm saying, absolutely not, because in the areas where we work in women empowerment, that's a number one agenda, where we are educating the women to say, you want your daughter to do better than you. So don't make this choice. Flip it around. I mean, we actually tell people that you let two classes be done because they have one phone, right? Second phone to afford will take a while. So we say you get them to do one day, alternate days, or some method like that. So you can imagine the drop rate there. Second, if you look at large companies, right, during this time, few could withstand it and not lay off people. And the construct which you referred to, you take any metrics and the men, women, the layoffs happened across board, and technology had the smallest number, whether it was corporate technology, product technology, or in tech firms, right? And women participation was like not very high.
Right.
And yeah.
So Ashu, I'm sorry, I will interject here to ask you a question exactly on this, and to you, Neelam, as well. So we need more poster girls or poster stories to say, Ashu, that, you can create the innovation. Why it is always men on the forefront, right? The women's stories are like probably 10-15%. What is stopping the innovation is not able to connect with women in the minds of in general? Why? Is it the ability? Is it the interest? Is it the resources? So is it the capital which is missing for women?
Sure.
Trust is the ability. Quick one from you and Neelam, then to you.
Yeah, so I can go and then Neelam very quickly, because that was the next point I was making. See, the issue is on all three. Education we discussed. When we think about the number of role models, there are many, and it's across. It's technology agnostic. You think about Mandeshi Bank and you look at what Chetna has done. It's incredible, right? Or Lijjat Papad. But during this time, it's not a well-written story, but they've deployed technology, both Lijjat Papad and Mandeshi, and they've survived. Now the problem is around capital. And Pankaj, you're a serial entrepreneur, and you know this and you see it, right? Just think about how much capital goes towards women entrepreneurs, and what is even the ability to equip them with their pitch books.
Got it.
The capacity, the building has to take a different order, and the need is now actually more than ever.
So Ashu, if I take the story of Neelam and you, it seems like Neelam is saying there's a social fabric issue. You are saying it will take 100 years for corporates to equal. So the story, I'm trying to find answer. Neelam, what's your view? Is it ability, interest? Now, Ashu has said that capital is an issue for women. What is your feeling, Neelam?
So I agree with that. It's not ability. I chaired last year the awards for women in research, so to speak, both in business research and in academic research. And the kind of patents, the kind of papers published by some of the women, I mean, I had never heard, like it started from Boolean algebra to going into AI and sensors. It was like mind-boggling for me to say how much work, and this is all India. Sure. It's nowhere from outside Bangalore and Bhubaneswar and from IIITs, from IITs and so on. There is work getting done, but the volume in which the women were involved is far less. I was like hoping I'll get hundreds of you you got many less applicants to that kind of research oriented award. And that set me thinking that why is it that women are not taking up careers in this deep technology areas, and perhaps they'll be good at it. It's the number of years you have to spend in it, and there isn't the time to spend that number of years to bring it out. Two, capital is not easily available to women entrepreneurs. Studies have shown if you lend to women entrepreneurs, they are so conscious of what they borrowed, they pay back. The fault rate where women entrepreneurs is concerned is much less, and I don't remember the data, but I read this, is much less than men entrepreneurs. But still that belief that she will be a go-getter and get the results you need and has that 24 hours as an entrepreneur to spend on this business is just not there. So the belief that women have the capabilities to be entrepreneurs and set it up is missing. And if you are very vocal and bold and you do what is right, then you're considered very aggressive, and you lose out in the long run. So there's no balance.
That's the men's world that we belong to, which is very shameful. But coming back, before I come to Ashu, so friends, if you're listening to us, the two ladies here are telling us that probably the social fabric and capital, both are challenges. Imagine if it is the situation for men. Today, we take these two things for granted, isn't it? And these two are the basic building blocks that the society will help you, and you have the capital available to run businesses, build businesses, create. So it seems that two major building blocks, Ashu and Neelam, you have decluttered for us that they are missing. So we've been discussing a lot on inclusion and innovation. We have not really touched technology. But before I move, Ashu, you had a comment?
Yes, I was just saying that think about the number of women in, mid-level and senior level roles that gave it up voluntarily during the last 12 months. Because being the primary caregiver and, this work from home, they just found it impossible because the children are doing online, the husband is working online, maybe even the in-laws. And I'll tell you why I wanted to say this comment. In some ways, there is need to reimagine the business world. What seemed like good corporate policies to retain women or get women around flexible work, etc. If you ask me, that's the way the world should be. And I am really rooting for reimagination.
So your answer to social fabric problem that Neelam identified, you are saying probably flexibility is an answer to social fabric, correct? So Neelam, would you like to give a one-liner? What according to you is the problem to capital or social fabric for women? What can we do? Give us an answer. Problem we've understood. What is yours?
Over the years, I've been looking at the social fabric a lot more. And especially when, it is startling to see when you go to campus for hiring, you don't have enough women to hire from. And my comment is to engineering and science and technology in STEM, right? And then you go deeper and you say, why is it that the girls are not encouraged? I did this project 2 years ago for IBM in Rajasthan, where we had these build your own robot kits. And we took them to a school. It's a government school where we are trying to get girls to do STEM besides whatever else they study. And we gave them the kits. In less than 2 hours, these girls had assembled the robots, the remote controlled robots, and they were very excited about it. Now, to keep their interest in it, I realized they are as sharp as anybody else, but it's the family, the mother, the father, the grandparents who are not encouraging you. And this comment is not based on the metros. This is based on semi-urban and rural areas where you really see some talented people not coming forward at all. So I would say social fabric over capital is the first issue which we need to address as a society and encourage them to follow their passion. Just encourage men or women, follow your passion.
So in a way, Neelam is saying that social fabric is definitely the problem, but she's also saying that not only we are saying that you can do it, we are rather telling them you can't do it, right? That's a huge problem. I don't know how it will change. Probably Bollywood will help us to produce more movies and change our mindset, or probably cricketers will start talking about it. So Ashu, we will talk more about it. And Neelam, I'm going to switch over to the next topic in interest of time. Next 15 minutes, so we can have a conversation a bit now when we discuss this inclusion and innovation in context of women. We identified that, of course, it's the social fabric and it's probably the capital not being available. But when you move a bit forward and you look at what COVID did, we converted the decade into days, right? And Neelam, to begin with you, when I say decade into days, the change in consumer behavior, in adoption of digital, it's a known story. I look at PeopleStrong ourselves. We did implementation of large HR tech ERPs in days sitting remotely, which used to be on site, people traveling, meetings happening. It became so efficient. So would love to hear any tips that you would like to give or expectations that organizations must do to continue to build this decade in days.
So as we go forward and as we look at what we learned in the 14 days, definitely the world of e-commerce and digital presence and digital transformations is here to stay. We have become very comfortable doing it. All across all stratas of society, we are very comfortable now using a bit of technology to do our banking, to do our learning, to do what we want to live with, whether it's entertainment to groceries to whatever. The jobs also have changed. If people think I can just go back and do what I was doing before, it ain't going to happen. Because when you look at, we talk about unemployment touching 12% in India right now, right? Whereas when you look at, there are jobs available, but we don't get the right talent for it also. And it's become a skills issue. The guys who were manning a retail counter in a shop, but the shop is closed, Can they become the delivery guys or the warehouse management or the shipping guys in various organizations? Because there are more jobs which companies have, like Amazon or Zomato or whoever else you can think of, online e-commerce companies. But the talent is missing. And this reskilling hasn't happened. We talked about sustainability some time ago. And when you look at sustainability, at the end of the day, it is all about, can we reduce our carbon footprint? So how do you use technology, which now helps you reduce less paper, less travel, to you do your work, and you're going to reduce the carbon footprint if you just did that. And you use technology like IoT in manufacturing to reduce the wastage. So technology and sustainability is also going hand in hand. I did work on a project which is near Lucknow in Barabanki, not personally me, but an NGO which we do, that if you put sensors and if you use smart technology on watering and irrigation and stuff like that, instead of having 2 crops in a year, you can get to 3 crops a year from the same plot of land. And your income has increased. So if you just say, I want to focus on livelihood itself, you will see that technology is making an impact. But then you don't have people who know how to use this technology, and skilling is not happening enough. So we need skills and skills and skills as a focus to correct this.
So Neelam, you are saying organizations, if they have to manage this journey of decade to days, they have to focus on skilling, right? That's the answer you're giving.
That's the one answer, one word.
Sure. And Ashu, what's your take on this whole problem? This decade to days journey, consumer behavior change, what can organizations do?
So there is, digital literacy is no longer a choice. It's a necessity. It's a bit like financial literacy, we used to say, is very important. I would say digital has become equally important. And for organizations, they have to think about digital or tech end-to-end, because the customer demands it. And the customer could be anybody. It could be another company. It could be the retail guy. And in that sense, when I look at what we did at CRISIL, we used these last 14 months to get people to upskill themselves. We didn't really talk about reskilling because there's a little bit of a negative perception to it. And it was unbelievable. The maximum uptake was, in fact, for things like Python. It was, to be able to actually robotize your day-to-day work, because there were simple tools available and there were short courses. And we used to encourage people to come to town halls to talk about why they took it up and how it benefited. And it used to be like 2-minute sessions, right? So you could cover many. That created a whole buzz in the organization. And that allowed us to retain everybody, because we actually extended ourselves to our clients to say, look, because of time zones, we in India believe we can help you in your digital transformation journey, because we've been able to undertake it very well. And this was right down to complex stuff, right? For their stress capital analysis, down to producing real-time analytics, right? And in simple ways. And that, to my mind, has been one of the biggest contributors for growth to us, for us, and also for our people. And just one example, taking this whole digital thing into the common, to our day-to-day lives and to all people, I'm totally impressed to see the number of WhatsApp-based business models that have come up and have become hugely successful. And some of them are actually going into their first round of formal funding. Only WhatsApp.
Got it. Yeah, fair point. Fair point.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, Ashu, what you're saying is that every company is a tech company today. right? We
Yes.
can't say that no company is not a tech company. So actually the job growth that we are seeing, so for instance, auto sector did not witness the kind of job growth, but the electric vehicles did.
That's right.
Similarly, you go to a company which is an engineering company, you will not see traditional jobs growing up, but the other side where the engineering jobs being automated, there's a huge demand, right? Look at any company, Bosches of the world, right? So there is a clear trend that's happening, Ashu, very well said. But Neelam, let me ask you, this whole drama around valuation, right? This whole investor story, somebody talking balance sheet, somebody talking P&L, profitability. Has it changed? So if you take the sustainability lens out, Neelam, not from an ecology perspective, but you talk sustainability from a financial hard cash perspective, Moola, have you seen any change, or this valuation game is same as it was?
I think the valuation game has changed a little bit. The valuation game has moved towards more and more companies who are digital. So if you want to raise big capital, you have to show sustainable business models using digital. So let's put it that even if you're a kirana shop, you want to borrow some money, if you show that you're using WhatsApp to process orders, or you're doing payphone and Paytm or whatever to do financial transactions, you will be considered as someone who's participating in the digital transformations which are happening, and you will survive the scene. So valuations very clearly are looking at sustainable business models using digital. Two, while the cash burn is still going on in startups, I think it has come down drastically, at least in the startups I've observed, where the numbers were, oh my God, if we were burning this kind of cash, I don't know what we are doing. The cash burn has come down. And there is a thinking which is emerging that in 2 years or 3 years, we need to be more profitable. That is one. The valuations have gone up. If you look at the kind of valuations we've seen, I advise a company which is in supply chain management, and especially for manufacturing companies. He moved to a SaaS model and a B2B commerce model, and his valuation crossed $1 billion in this time. So we have to think about what is a sustainable business model for the future, and that is changing the valuations far more.
Oh, interesting. Ashu, what's your...
But one thing remains. That has not changed. Everybody looks at what is the management team, who is the founder, who are the people supporting him, does he have the right talent? That has not changed at all. So what skills we look at them, it doesn't matter. But do you have a team which you can trust, not an individual? That hasn't changed.
Thanks for sharing that. Ashu, what's your view?
So I would agree with Neelam that there is a change that is underway. It's not quite where we would like it to be. And, this is just keeping in mind the drop-off rate, right? After the first round, the second round, why things don't work out, right? But there's a very good positive change, and digital is a very big contributor. Neelam spoke about it from what's being done in the companies. When I look at it from what's going on in the minds of capital providers, ESG, for a minute, stepping away from E or climate change, which is, well understood, well spoken, I think S&G has become very important. And Neelam did talk about management. But the main driver for capital providers is there is a very big tectonic shift in the owners of money, which are their LPs. And the fact that in almost, I would say, 2/3 of providers of capital, ESG is becoming hygiene, and the report back,
I agree,
okay, with hard numbers,
I agree,
is an ask. Otherwise, people pull out. When you have BlackRocks of the world saying, we will not fund 1, 2, 3, or a pension fund saying that long-term capital will go in that direction, it is very clear that it's going to be the ask. And the moment that's the ask, entrepreneurs are smart. They begin to reimagine, rethink, which I think is a very, very positive change. And I just want to sort of say one more thing, and this is something we, don't talk about it too much. And all three of us, lead businesses, right? The youth, they are far more conscious. And the kind of questions today a campus recruit will ask CEOs is mind-blowing, because they care about the environment. They care about how they will be treated. So the human capital aspect, I think, is a very big shift. So it's coming in all directions, and sustainability is the way forward as my.
So Neelam started with skilling and saying teams are very important. You touched upon, and you are saying now capital is going to force the sustainability agenda, right? Which is great to hear. And I agree, almost every investment requires an ESG approval, even if it is coming a little bit kind of regulatory, but probably it's the right thing to do. So that's clearly. Thank you, Ashu, for saying this. Neelam, coming to you for probably the last question, given the time we have. I want to hear from you, and then Ashu, from you as well. Is inclusion not linked to impact? Is that the reason why inclusion is always left behind? Neelam, you started with social fabric agenda, right? So because people's mind, they don't connect that if inclusion happens, be it women and other stakeholders, it will lead to XYZ positive outcomes. That doesn't come naturally to us. Is that the reason? Should we need to do something in that field, Neelam, when we are talking of impact?
I think inclusion is really important from India's perspective. We don't want the ratios of 80-20, that 80% of the income is in 20% of the hands. And as a result, create a society which is really, really starved for funds and have 20% who are not. So we need that inclusion as a society to be done. But the entitlement of inclusion, that I am entitled to this because the government should take care of me, has to go away. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to have that I want to be included in the economic activity and work on it. That understanding has to happen, that excitement that I have to earn an income, I have to take care of my family and not depend on people to help me, has to go away. And that inclusion and bringing them into the financial activity is extremely, extremely important. When you go into the villages and you work with them, it's ironical. You tell a person, and this is focus on livelihood, you're earning 2,000 rupees a month, you can earn 3,000 rupees a month. If let's say you look at goats as a supplementing your income, and guess what? Your wives can look after the goats because the goats are at home, right? They don't like the idea. So we have to include more people, give them alternatives, show them how important it is to come up in the financial inclusion and be part of the economic activity which is happening in this country. It'll improve our GDP, it'll improve, do away with our talent issues. And I think it'll just bring about prosperity all around. Inclusion is important.
Neelam, I hope that these stories will come up so that people in their minds subconsciously realize that inclusion is profitable, right? Yes. Today, that equation is missing. And what you said, the merit-based inclusion, or probably providing opportunities, if nothing else, just give opportunities, some stories will come up. But I hope more and more will come. And I agree, digital is becoming a great common ground for everyone. Ashu, what's your take on this whole inclusion story happening? Is it not happening because there are not enough stories?
So to my mind, there are many stories, but it's about the desire to take it up. And that is about leadership at the top.
But if I know inclusion will lead to profitability, why will I not take it up? I'm just asking.
So you think about it, right? For any of us, I mean, if I look at CRISIL, right? The core business, given our research analytics, one is about producing the analytics that drives everybody in that direction, right? That's indirect. But when I look at what we do through the foundation and the fact that there we deploy those methodologies directly ourselves, and, we've chosen Northeast, where by and large, very few foundations go, and naturally Rajasthan and Haryana, because again, there is a very big problem there and we've chosen women empowerment, you can see that deployment and results. And for us, it's not just inclusion, it's purposeful inclusion, because we want to make sure that every rupee spent, produces a disproportionate impact. And I'll tell you why I'm talking about this, because I think inclusion sometimes is numbers. Impact is equally important. And, if I think about financial literacy, I feel that sometimes this inclusion term gets abused because you get some fantastic numbers produced and, splashed all over. What is very important is, did that rupee go that extra mile? And because stories are so relevant, we changed one metrics. And I'm delighted to talk about, what that metrics was and what it did, because it will link to the broader ecosystem. We said the measure of women empowerment is to have evidence that she can speak up at home, she can speak up in society. And what has it done to the finances of the family?
Okay.
And we cover more than 200,000 women in 2 states, right? And we've seen that needle move because data shows that they stop the menfolk, or they stop their mother-in-law from some disparaging comments or from alcohol abuse and stuff like that. That money saved goes towards the goats or goes towards weaving, and the income goes up. And for our people, that is when we actually tell them you've met their KPI. So they are doing it because they're asked to. And that is what I mean by purposeful impact, and which is why inclusion is not good enough. Impact is the overriding theme.
Oh, beautiful. I'm so glad you shared this story, Ashu. Thank you so much. And Neelam, your whole conversation around social fabric and then talking about scaling, the softer side of the agenda, be it inclusion, be it impact, be it innovation, was really helpful. I'm sure, like me, audience stands enriched. And Ashu, this whole funda, that is the capital probably, which is not chasing the way it should chase women. And the examples that you gave are very empowering. So I think we've got to close, but a one-liner answer from you both, right? So if on one side you have an option to give more opportunities to women, and on another side to figure out the stories that are available for impact, which one you will focus more on? Ashu, which one you will focus more on? If you have $100 to spend, give more opportunities or finding more stories?
I'm an and person.
Perfect.
So I would just go for both.
Okay. All right. Neelam, for you.
It's opportunities.
Opportunities. Wonderful. So I think sooner or later, I think if we have the right opportunity or the platform ready, I'm sure women in India and globally will do what it takes. And they're already coming enough on the fore. But as Ashu said, which was not a great number to begin with, that will take probably a century for us to equate. If the pace we are going, we remain at that pace. So I hope the space will change. Initiatives like WiT and many others will help removing these biases and bringing in inclusion, impact, and innovation. With that, thank you once again, Ashu, for the lovely conversation and inputs. Neelam, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. And a big thank you to you both and to all audience in WiT, and a big namaste. Thank you.
Thank you, Pankaj. Thanks, Neelam. Wonderful connecting again. And thanks, WiT.
Same here. Thank you. Lovely talking.
Bye.
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 Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.